It's time for the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Each week, Trading Stocks Made Easy demystifies stock trading and investing so you can profit big. And now, here's the host of Trading Stocks Made Easy, the wealthy investor, Tyrone Jackson.
Well, welcome to Trading Stocks Made Easy with Tyrone Jackson. Thank you always for taking time out of your busy day to spend some time with me and listen to our podcast here. You know, Trading Stocks Made Easy is all about demystifying Wall Street so that you can open a brokerage account, start owning stocks, maybe do a little trading, covered call writing, collecting some dividends, and most importantly, building some wealth. So on this particular show, I have a very special guest who's going to be joining me, Darcy Parsons, and she's going to talk a little bit about how she trades, invests, runs her special effects visual editing company, and most importantly, since one of the major tenets in the Wealthy Investor Program is helping other people, the impact for her and her family. But before we get to Darcy, I wanted to talk to you today about something called an IPO. Now, what is an IPO? It stands for Initial Public Offering. Now, very often, since we live in the age of mass media, social media, and blogging, as well as broadcast radio and television, you'll see some things online whenever you log in. This company is going public, and it's a great chance to get in. And they'll tell you about how excited and how much money should be raised around the stock. And generally, these days, we're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars. And there's this kind of fever that goes on around an IPO. So the question that I wanted to tease you with here today is, should you own a stock when it first goes public? Should you own a stock when it first goes public? Now, everything that I say here on this show, obviously, is my point of view as the wealthy investor, and you don't necessarily have to take it. But since you listen to the show, and by the way, I'm told, I don't know if this is true or not, that even the Pope listens to the show. No, that's not true. But so everything that I tell you here is actually from my point of view. Maybe he does listen. I don't know what goes on at the Vatican. Another story for another time. But my perspective on IPOs is never, ever purchase a stock when it goes public. It seems like you might be getting in on the ground floor of something, some great opportunity. But the reason that we don't do it in the Wealthy Investor Program is very simple. Because a company that is just going public raises money through the sale of stocks, sometimes bonds and other things, to basically expand their business. Now, what we don't know when a company goes public is how they're going to spend that money, how they're going to market it, how many TV commercials they're going to make, what's their advertising plan worldwide to spread the message about their product, service, or Wall Street or website in general. So because we don't know that puts us in a higher risk. Also, once they have the money that actually comes from the sale of the stock, what are they going to do with it? Their staffing, who's going to run the company? There's too many unknowns. And you hear me talk about all the time top line revenue. That's the company's gross revenue on a quarterly basis, which you know by now is necessary by law under U.S. law that every company reports their top line revenue every 13 weeks or per quarter. Well, when you go public, we really have no track record of how much you're spending and how much you're earning. Therefore, you are in a very, very high risk category. Now, the closest that you would ever come to purchasing an IPO would be after 4 quarters when you can go back for 4 earnings periods and actually do what? See how much the company is actually earning. So really, the earliest time to buy an IPO from the wealthy investor point of view is 1 year after the company has gone public, because you have 1 year of revenue and 4 quarters of top-line revenue growth. Now, if you go back and you actually look at a few companies that have recently gone public or have gone public over, let's say, the past 10 years, you look at a company stock like Alibaba, that stock is down. Very often, companies that actually go public don't meet the expectations of the people who buy the stock, and they wind up losing money on a quarterly basis. So you'll find out more about IPOs at thewealthyinvestor.net. That's thewealthyinvestor.net. And by the way, if you're not signed up for my free newsletter, something is wrong. So what should you be doing right now? Log on to thewealthyinvestor.net and make sure that you sign up for that free newsletter. And remember, the best time to buy an IPO is a year after the stock has gone public. We're going to have some more great stuff with, I always bring on my students here. We're going to have some more great stuff with one of my favorite people in the world is going to join us. Darcy's going to join us on the other side of this break.
You're listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Want to learn more about how to trade and invest in the stock market? Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products. That's thewealthyinvestor.net/products and order the Wealthy Investor's Guide to Stock Market Success audio series. This easy-to-follow 5-CD audio series and manual will teach you the basics of how to buy and sell stocks, how to collect quarterly dividends for life, plus hidden income generating strategies like covered call writing and volatility trading. Start creating financial freedom right now. Get the financial education you need to get ahead. Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products.
Wealthy Investor, Wealthy Investor, wealthyinvestorradio.com.
And welcome back, Tyrone Jackson, and I'm joined with my very, very special guest, Darcy Parsons. But I just want to say, yes, if you have not purchased the Wealthy Investor's Guide to Stock Market Success, you need to do so at thewealthyinvestor.net right now. And I'm going to tell you why very quickly. Because in that audio series is where you're going to really learn the language of the stock market if you're new. And we always have a special offer attached, like hot stocks, big profits, the stocks that I think you should be owning right now. Or it was a retirement product. So we always give you the basics of stock market trading in that product and then a special bonus product that's going to tell you what's current in the market right now. So that's the Wealthy Investor's Guide to Stock Market Success. And where do you get it? At thewealthyinvestor.net. Get your copy now. Well, welcome Darcy Parsons to the studio today.
Thank you, Tyrone.
I am so happy to have you here to spend some time with me. You know how I feel about you, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, I think we establish that every time we see each other. I'm so happy that you decided to come in and share your experience as both a stock market trader and investor. But before we get to the stock market, I really want to talk a little bit about you, your background. You're a creative person associated with Saturday Night Live. At some point, I wind up teaching a lot of creative people how to trade and invest in the stock market. Why don't we let the audience kind of get to know you a little bit? Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Peekskill, New York, and I went to college in Buffalo, and then I went to New York City to live, and I became a producer in New York for commercials and television. And I worked at Saturday Night Live for a couple of seasons, and I did some HBO specials for Lorne Michaels, and then I moved out to Los Angeles and focused on commercials and eventually moved into visual effects when I wanted to settle down and have a family. And I started a visual effects company 8.5 years ago, which has been very successful in the industry, the commercial industry.
Very successful. You're not kidding. We're here in Hollywood, and a lot of people know who you are, and you're so humble, as a lot of successful people really are. What's the name of your company?
Brewster Parsons.
Brewster Parsons. That's exactly right. And for people who don't understand visual effects, you are the people, whenever you're watching a commercial and a horse needs to talk, or a pig needs to fly, or a cookie flies across the screen as something extraordinary happens. Your company makes that happen, right?
Yeah, we do. Those are all built in CG, and we also do a lot of compositing just to make things very beautiful.
There was something you did with a cruise line.
We did a whole project for the Royal Caribbean. We built an 8-minute film that it showed a ship that had not been constructed yet. We built it out in CG, and then we filmed celebrities on green screen and created the rooms around them, and it was pretty extraordinary.
Now, how did you – let's go back to Saturday Night Live, because you were associated, I think it was Rob Smigel, those films. What was your experience?
We did all the remotes, so I worked with Mike Myers when he first was there, and we did the show opens, and anytime there was a commercial that showed on the show, we filmed those like a regular commercial. And I was there for 2 seasons, so it was pretty fun, very exciting.
What was it like working on that show?
It was a very, a lot of hours, but a lot of fun. It was very rewarding. It was because I loved Saturday Night Live growing up, so it was really fun to be there for 2 years and be part of the whole creative process.
And you were there as a producer for segment producer?
I was the segment producer for anything that was filmed outside of the Saturday Night Live actual show.
And so explain the transition from segment producing to advertising.
Well, I had always been working in advertising, so I had all the the producer skills for that. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I had a choice of whether to go into television or commercials, and I decided to focus on commercials, and because I liked advertising, and there's a lot of creative work that came out of Los Angeles, and I really wanted to settle in LA to be a part of what was going on at that time. So,
and how did you find your way into visual effects? Because I've been to your production company, and you've got all these servers in here, and I was like, "What does this one do?" And you're like, "Tyrone, sometimes I don't even know."
Yeah, I'm not the most technical person. I'm more creative, but I have people around me that know all the technology, and they educate me when I need to be educated on it. But I love the artists and the way they create, and they're incredibly intelligent and creative. So it's really amazing to collaborate with them and make things beautiful, and work with directors at the production houses and the advertising agencies, and really bring their projects through to fruition. It's really rewarding.
And there are some people, if you're in the ad business for a long time, you think, we're just doing commercials here. It's not brain surgery. We're not saving the world. Do you still have a love for that? I
do, because I feel like what we create goes out into the world, and if you bring your consciousness and the way you see things creatively into the work, it goes out. It affects people on very deep levels. So that's what really resonates with me in holding, being part of the business.
Now, somewhere along the line, there's Saturday Night Live. You wind up starting your own or owning your own visual effects company here in Hollywood.
Yes.
Very, very successful.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere along the line, you learn about trading and investing in the stock market. But before that, most people, before their first step into trading and investing, is you own a piece of property, right?
Yes.
Was that the same for you?
Well, before I owned property, I invested in the stock market in the late 90s, and I was doing it without an education, and I lost $10,000, and I said, I will never do this again. And then I turned to real estate investing, and I bought a few rental properties, and some of them did well, some of them didn't. And then eventually now I've sold them all. I'm still in one building in Los Angeles, and I have my own home. But what happened is I met somebody who talked about you, Tyrone, and I was like, well, I was kind of like, I'm not doing stock market anymore. But what she said about Tyrone, I was like, well, maybe I should just go to a free class and see what he's about. So I went to the first class, and I was so inspired by you and the way you held the material. And also you taught in a different way. I had gone to a very, expensive seminar in the year 2000, and they talked about options. But then Sunday night, you're like, they're gone, and I didn't know what to do, so I never did it because I was scared because I didn't know enough. And what I loved about meeting you and your program was there was accountability. Every month, you would meet with us again and teach us deeper lessons so we would really learn it, and also teach us what was going on in the market. So we were always current with what's happening because it's always changing and fluctuating. And to me, that was like just such a huge benefit.
Well, thank you very much. And I really appreciate that. And you know that I have a particular teaching style. Like I always tell a story. Like I talk a lot about dating. Everybody's who comes to the program, we have good dates and bad dates in the stock market. You have to know when to break up with a stock. And I have found that if I can keep it that simple, it increases your chance of being successful. So when it's time to leave a stock, let's say the earnings drop or something, that date is over and you move on to a greater date. Do you find that storytelling helps you?
Oh, it helps me a lot because I'm a very creative person. Mm-hmm. So it's the way I see things visually as when you make those kind of metaphors, it's easy for me to understand. And I think that's one of the big things about your class. It simplifies something that's extremely complex. Because whenever I try to learn more with people that are speak in a more left brain manner about it, it's just not the way my brain works. And I'm so grateful to you, Tyrone, because It helps me learn, and I feel like I'm really building a knowledge base that's going to serve me for the rest of my life and for my family, because I have to put 2 kids through college, and this is going to be the way I do it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I come from the entertainment business, right? Which is so weird because people always say, how come you have all these artists on your show? It's like, well, they're coming from the industry that I'm most familiar with. And I have found the best way to reach people when teaching something like stocks trading or options trading or, complex option spreads and all that is through storytelling, because then people are not intimidated by the material. So I'm glad that works out. Now let's get back to you. And so you say, I'm going to try this stock market thing the way that Tyrone Jackson teaches it. Do you? I know it's been a while now. Do you remember your first trade?
I absolutely remember my first trade.
What was it?
Well, first of all, I was a big chicken when I signed up for the class. I said, you lost money last time. This time you're going to do things right. I just went to the class every month for 6 months, and I didn't do anything. I just studied, and I traded on paper. And then around March, I was on vacation and I traded eBay, volatility traded it, and I made $750 because I did it exactly as you teach us. And then I made like $2,000 my first month, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And so every month I started, doing volatility, and a couple of months later I did my first covered call, and I couldn't believe how easy it was. And that's been a big part of my strategy since then.
And so there's a thing that happens when you do your first trade, taking the wealthy investor approach, and the first time you make money, like, I can't believe this is real. Did you have that experience?
I absolutely had that experience, and I couldn't believe how simple it was once I understood what to do and what button to push on the trade, and using the knowledge that I learned in class because of the drills that we do every time we meet. It really helps you when you come into the market and you're going to do a trade. You have that, behind you, and it's like, oh, I know what to do because you've done it like so many times already from playing in the class and learning how to do it.
Now, one of the things that we do is we are simultaneously both traders. So we'll take in an income off a covered call or volatility trade. And we also build wealth. We call it building positions on $5 buy signals. Have you found that approach to be helpful?
Very helpful. I have a few stocks that I already have long-term positions in that have done very well for me. And I'm getting ready to add another stock into the lineup. So that's I feel is the long-term wealth strategy for me.
Right. And we know that as your wealth grows, those stocks that you're building their position on, and that basically means buying stocks, and then we wait for the stock to go up $5 to prove to us it's worthy of another round of investing, that your margin is simultaneously growing. How do you use margin?
Well, I'll use it for covered calls and some leaps. So that's how I use my margin.
Okay.
But it gives me, I can buy more, if the market says it's okay for me to buy more.
Okay. And we all lose money in the market. It's a part of trading. It's a part of investing. However, we want, basically, simply stated, our winners to be larger than our losses, and then you have a profit, right?
Absolutely.
Have you ever lost money in a stock, and how did that happen?
I did lose some money. I lost money on some leaps, but I've learned how to do front month calls against them, so that now I can bring money in as money's going down. So that's been really helpful for me. But also I had profits, so that the stock market gave me, and I'm learning. So it's I used some money that the market gave me, so I didn't really lose any money. It was
right, because after all was said and done, you were net positive
ahead.
somewhere.
Yeah, I was way ahead.
Yeah, that's because that's how we structure our portfolio.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a stock where earnings declined and the date was over? It was time to get out. Has that happened to you?
Yes.
Okay. What stock was it?
Whole Foods.
Yes. Isn't that a fascinating story? I did this whole lesson on Whole Foods versus Kroger and the whole thing. And the marketplace changes. So all of a sudden, this stock that you love, it's time to leave.
Yeah.
How does that feel emotionally?
Well, it's interesting because when I first got in the class, I would get really nervous and I was very emotional about it. And I mean, Whole Foods, I got out of probably a year and a half ago, so I was still a little more emotional. But it's actually, I look at it, I'm freeing that money up to put it into something that's going to give me that money back in another way. So my emotions are I'm very pretty even now. I look at it more rationally, like a decision rather than like, oh my gosh, I know that I can make the money back if something goes down.
And my students are always amazed that when you take a loss on in your portfolio, if you've been covered call writing and collecting dividends, you still have overall cap gains. So when they go to see their accountant, they figured, I don't have any tax liability this year because I took that huge loss. And the accountant goes, here's your bill.
Yeah.
You're like, but I lost money in that stock. Yeah, but you made so much money elsewhere that it worked out.
And I made money leaving Whole Foods because I did a covered call to get me out of it.
Yes, which we call paid to leave.
Yes, got paid to leave.
Yes, and that is...
So that lightened the hit,
Right, because you load your cost basis on the shares, and it was really great. The other thing that I wanted to spend just a little bit of time talking about is fear. There are some people going to say, well, this woman who are listening to this show, did I tell you the Pope listens?
Oh, yes.
We mentioned
of course he listens.
We hope he listens. I don't know if they have iTunes at the Vatican, but we'll just say right now we think the Pope could be listening. That's a good way to look at it. A lot of people want to trade or invest or even put their money sometimes in real estate, but they don't want to lose any money at all. Is that a realistic expectation?
No. I don't think so because we can't control what happens. So you set off with the best intentions. There is some risk, but you try to do things with the lowest risk possible. So you assess what it looks like and follow your gut.
What about how important are dividends?
Hugely important.
Okay,
yeah.
Why?
Well, for instance, right now I have shares in one stock that's dropped that I believe in it. I think it's going to come back up. But
what stock is that? Because people
Macy's.
Okay, Macy's, right?
But I'm getting dividends as I'm going, so it's I'm fine. It's that, and if I'm going to hold Macy's for 10 years, which I probably will, because I think it's a good date, or until it turns into a bad date. But I know it's a good date right now. I know I'm making dividends as I'm going along, and it also, the stock's not going to drop that much because the institutions stay in because they're making the dividends and they have far more shares than I do.
Right. And as I always say, when the stock drops and the dividend is there, the yield rises. So it automatically becomes more and more attractive. Okay, it's time for me to take a commercial. But when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about this inner game of wealth. Like how you've had to change and adjust your thoughts, your feelings, so that the universe could assist you in wealth building. Can we do that after the break?
Absolutely.
All right. Back with Darcy Parsons right after this.
You're listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Want to learn more about how to trade and invest in the stock market? Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products. That's thewealthyinvestor.net/products and order the Wealthy Investor's Guide to Stock Market Success audio series. This easy-to-follow 5-CD audio series and manual will teach you the basics of how to buy and sell stocks, how to collect quarterly dividends for life, plus hidden income generating strategies like covered call writing and volatility trading. Start creating financial freedom right now. Get the financial education you need to get ahead. Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products.
Wealthy Investor, Wealthy Investor, wealthyinvestorradio.com.
And we're back. If you like listening to this show, please support us by visiting thewealthyinvestor.net, getting on our free email list. Or if you really want to learn how to trade stocks, make sure you order the Wealthy Investor's Guide to Stock Market Success. That helps keep our show on the air and bringing you fine guests like we have today. We're here today with Darcy Parsons, who, of course, is one of my students. People say, why do you have so many of your students on the show? Because you guys are what we call social proof. You prove that the system works. A lot of people who listen to the show say, oh, your students sound so confident about their ability to make money. They're not professional traders. You are a creative person by nature. And we were talking about, just before the break, the internal game of wealth. Now, I do have a tendency to teach money and wealth building from more of a spiritual point of view. Where your wealth, as I always say, is in your thinking. It's in your money beliefs. So if you believe you cannot make a lot of money trading and investing, the universe will essentially say to you in many ways, you are correct. and it will prove you right. But if you say, I'd like to have $2,000, $5,000, $7,000 a month, the universe will say, well, great. And they will ultimately send you something or some way to make that manifest. Have you found any of those principles to be true?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the way, I mean, that's one of the huge things I resonated with it, in the way you teach, Tyrone, because it's in harmony with my belief system around money. And also the thing that I found interesting is the way you teach with the drills, because some of us can afford 100 shares, but you always teach with a higher number. And to me, at first I was like, well, I'll never have 1,000 shares, if that's anything. But after being 3 years in, I can see it coming in for me, and I can see why you teach that way, because it helps expand our consciousness to conceive of having a large trading account and having that level of wealth, and that to me is part of the way you teach spiritually to us, and also helping us shift our belief systems, because I didn't realize. I am a very positive person, but I'm always growing. And when I started learning from you, I could see places where I was holding myself back, and the way you teach has helped me be more free and more open and allow more to come in.
I think a lot of people also don't realize how big the money game is and how big their life can be financially. So every once in a while, we'll be breaking down a trade, and I'll say, do you see that some bank or college hedge fund just brought 200,000 shares or 1 million shares? And what happens is people say, wow, that's real? Like, there's really somebody out there buying 1 million shares of something, the stock goes up $1, they make $1 million from that? Mm-hmm. How important is that in feeding your mindset as to what's possible?
Well, it makes me a lot more confident, also because I know there are a ton of people out there, either hedge funds, but also individuals that are making this kind of money because they've learned how to trade, and maybe they work at a hedge fund and they've learned that way. But I feel like you're teaching us all the strategies and ways to do it in a way that I would have never had access to if I hadn't met you.
And one of the things that's really fascinating is, if you have what I call limited beliefs, if you think too small, not only will you not have an impact on your life, you won't have an impact on the world. Now, you have 2 twins.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Or you have twins, I should say.
Exactly.
There's 2 sets of twins. That'd be a lot of kids. Exactly. Because you have this open-minded concept, they know something about the stock market, right?
Oh my gosh. My son, I got him a trading account 3 months ago because he was begging me for one. And he's like, he's going to come to class probably on his 12th birthday because he's so interested in it and he really wants to learn the stock market. He's obsessed with it now. And my daughter's interested in it too, but my son is like very committed to learning. And so it's interesting because I wanted to teach them, but they're super enthusiastic about it in a way that I'm just so grateful because I didn't have that when I was a kid. My father invested, but it was always kind of like we never learned from him. He was very old school, I do this, and, he would teach us a little bit, but not very much. So I never learned until just now, the last 3 years.
If you had learned when you were 12 about covered call writing, dividends, building a position, how do you think your life would be different today?
Oh my gosh, Tyrone, it would be like so different. And when I was living in New York in the 80s, I would not have bought shoes. I would have bought Microsoft, stuff like that, You
feel like you would have handled your money a little bit
differently.
Absolutely.
I would have handled it completely differently.
And why is that?
I would have had the education. I would have had the self-esteem. I would have had the confidence. I feel like all those things are tied in together with that education. It's like, in a way, it's like learning to value yourself more, to actually give yourself this. I think it's very beautiful what it brings in to my life and to other people's lives, the way you teach it and what it is. It's pretty remarkable to me.
And this is so fascinating because you'll have the gift of wealth to pass not only the knowledge, but the accounts and the money and the dividends to pass on to your kids, right?
Yeah, and that's really important to me. And also because their life will be different. They won't look at earning a living as a struggle and this long, road in front of them to build for their retirement, and they could create wealth, by the time they're 30 and serve mankind in a different way that they might not allow themselves if they had to, really hunker down to make a serious living without knowing about this.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I always say, you can't see this yet, but your grandkids will never be the same.
Yeah, because I see it in another part of my family where, like, one of our great-grandfathers had a lot of money that he invested in the stock market, and they went to one side of our family, and our side of the family didn't benefit from it as much. And you see the difference in the lifestyle in all the kids of my generation.
Oh, so you're seeing the proof now.
Yeah,
I see.
But to me, that's I'm grateful for it because I'm allowing myself to create it for my family now. It's very beautiful.
What would you say to the person who's been, there are people who listen to every episode of this podcast before they take an action, maybe open a trading account or order that Wealthy Investor's Guide product or get on one of our teleseminars. What would you say to that person who's saying, well, this woman sounds pretty savvy, right? She comes from a little bit of money. She has this successful company. She can do it, but I can't. You would say what?
I would just start, because even if you don't have much money now, even if you're putting $100 away a month or every 2 months, over 5 years, you'll have a position and you'll have the skills to really build wealth in a way you can't even imagine. And also I also feel like by taking that step, all of a sudden things start to happen, and you might get a raise at work because you're focused on creating money to invest, so the money will start coming in ways because you're focused on a long-term financial goal. So to me, it's a very important step to take.
Well, we both have a keen respect for the law of attraction.
Yes.
And that is really important. What you focus on in this lifetime, you tend to get more of. Mm-hmm. And so if you're focused on worry, financial stress, and strain, you'll find yourself in that position. But if you're focused on financial ease, abundance, and wealth with money, you're likely to attract that a little bit more.
Yes, and my whole inner focus is different now. When I look at my account, I'm like, how can I make money this week? How can I make money this month? So it's always that's always in my consciousness now. So it's very different.
So your advice to someone who's waiting is what? Take $500 and open a brokerage account?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would start, where you are. Don't wait until you have $5,000 even. I would start with a very small amount and also build the education, because as you're getting the education, you'll be more savvy and know what to do as you make more money. So you don't want to go in with say you save up $100,000. I wouldn't want to go in without having the education. So if you're building your education and building your account at the same time, it's a perfect scenario.
Yeah.
So
you make some really great points. Now, I'm going to ask you this live. Will you come back and see us again?
Yeah, absolutely.
To check in, because I want to talk to you a little bit more about the stocks that you tend to trade. Do you stay in the Dow Jones Industrial Average? Do you just focus on those S&P stocks? We're going to do a show just on options trading, because here we're talking about, actually today we're mixing concepts, selling calls on stocks and collecting dividends. You mentioned LEAPs, which are long-term equity anticipation securities. So we'll get into those specific trades when you come back. Is that a fair deal?
Absolutely. I'd love that.
Okay. Thank you so much for being my special guest today. I really appreciate you being here.
Okay. Thank you, Tyrone. I really appreciate being here.
Thank you. Okay. This is Tyrone Jackson of Trading Stocks Made Easy. Hey, make a commitment. Do something today that's different. Open an online trading account. Decide you're going to put $500 in. Invest your income tax refund. That's a great thing to do, because although it feels like it's just a simple step for you, you never know how you're going to positively impact your world and the people you love, your kids, your grandkids, and the people in your family. So until next time, stay open and stay positive.
You've been listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Be sure to rate and review our show on iTunes. While you're on iTunes, be sure to click the subscribe button and you'll automatically receive our next episode.